The Senate will please come to order. The chair recognizes the senator from Grand Isle, Senator Mazza.
President, I move that the chair appoint a committee of 2 senators to wait upon the Lieutenant Governor-elect, the Honorable David E. Zuckerman, and escort him to the bar of the Senate so that he can receive the oath of office. Thank you.
The senator from Grand Isle has moved that the chair appoint a committee of 2 senators to wait upon the Lieutenant Governor-elect, the Honorable David E. Zuckerman, and escort him to the bar of the Senate so that he may receive the oath of office. Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. The ayes have it, and the motion has carried. The chair appoints as members of this committee Senator Clarkson and Senator Brock. Will the committee please assemble and perform the duties assigned to it? I believe the Lieutenant Governor-elect is in his office, so it'll be a short wait if senators can remain seated. The oath of office will now be administered to the Lieutenant Governor-elect, David E. Zuckerman, by Sha'an Moulier of St. Johnsbury Center.
Raise your hand. Repeat after me. I, David E. Zuckerman,
I, David E. Zuckerman,
solemnly affirm
that
I will be true and faithful to the state of Vermont, and that I will not directly or indirectly do any act or thing injurious to the Constitution or the government thereof, under the pains and penalties of perjury. I solemnly affirm that I will faithfully execute the office of Lieutenant Governor for the state of Vermont, and will therein do equal right and justice to all people to the best of my judgment and ability, according to the law, under the pains and penalties of perjury. I solemnly affirm that I will support the Constitution of the state of Vermont and the Constitution of the United States under the pains and penalty of perjury.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's a pleasure to be back. Welcome to the 2023-24 Vermont legislative session. It's with deep gratitude, excitement, and some trepidation that I return to this podium as Vermont's Lieutenant Governor. First of all, I'm very grateful to Vermonters for trusting me with the responsibility and the opportunity to serve again as your Lieutenant Governor. I want to thank Vermonters for diligently paying attention and participating, for calling your representatives to alert them to your concerns, and senators, I should say, to their concerns and needs, and for showing up at the polls and voting. In the past, when you engaged about stormwater runoff, cannabis reform, patient choices, issues of inequality, a woman's reproductive liberty, property taxes, marriage equality, gun safety, and more, your calls made a difference. Your votes make a difference. We need you. We cannot work without your input, and I thank you for your good work. This is what democracy looks like. I'm also grateful to each of the candidates that I faced. Representative Kitty Toll, Patricia Preston, Representative Charlie Kimball, and Senator Joe Benning, many of your former colleagues, who also ran for this office. It was a pleasure to share the campaign trail with them, such dedicated, capable, and thoughtful individuals. You gave Vermonters good choices, and you showed everyone that in this state, and beyond, that candidates can vie for the same position respectfully and with integrity. I want to thank my family and the families of all elected officials who make it possible for us to do what we do. Campaigning and serving is hard and challenging, yet what many folks don't realize is that it can also be hard on your loved ones and families. Mud slung at us is also slung at them. Their actions and behaviors can be viewed as appendages of ours. Late night attending meetings and our nights that we're not there with our children or grandchildren to tuck them into bed or to help them with their homework. We're not always there to eat dinner as a family, let alone help clean up afterwards. We're not always there to massage our loved one's neck and ask them how their day went. Service to our state and our communities requires sacrifice and hard work. Work that we could never do without the love and sacrifices from those who hold us up and encourage us to keep fighting for others, even when it comes at personal cost to them. While I'm sorry to lose the valuable assets many of our past senators that have retired, I'm grateful to each of you, senators here today. Vermonters have spoken, and they've said they want you to bring your solutions to the table. I'm excited for how new conversations and new combinations of insights and experiences will benefit our state. Inside each of your desks is a jar of maple cream from Carrie and Maine. Looks kind of like this, in case you don't pull it out now. Carrie and Maine is located in St. Johnsbury and North Danville, as I'm sure the senator from Caledonia County knows. The company's name pays homage to George Carey, the man widely recognized as the Maple King of Vermont. Although we actually owe the development of maple syrup production to the indigenous peoples of the area, Carey earned his title as Maple King of Vermont for his work in the early 20th century, pioneering the expansion of maple from a local product to one that is prized across the country. I chose this gift to you to kick off the start of our new biennium as a reminder of why we are here. Maple in all its glorious forms is a symbol of the beauty of Vermont. It's a symbol of hard work, ingenuity, natural beauty, and resilience. It's a symbol of who we are, of all that we have, and also all that we are on the precipice of losing. I can think of nothing more iconic to Vermont than the maple tree. The maple tree brings us together in sugar shacks every spring. Families, friends, and neighbors flock together to boil sap, stoke the fire, or gather at their local sugar on snow destination. We pour real maple syrup on our pancakes, waffles, and fried dough. A Vermont summer is not complete without the sweetness, indulging in the sweetness of a refreshing maple creamy. Yet we would have none of this sweetness without Vermonters working countless hours, tapping trees, clearing sugar bushes, running lines, wading thigh-high in snow under normal circumstances, gathering, and then boiling the sap. The work of making something so delicious out of the sap of a tree exemplifies the rugged physical labor that so many Vermonters do, regardless of the weather, sore muscles, cold fingers, and achy joints. The rugged spirit of Vermonters, as well as the community energy around it, are epitomized in the sugaring season and its products. Fall foliage season, with yellow, orange, and red maples lighting up our hillsides and communities, is truly a beauty to behold. We have something very special here, and folks notice that. Vermont and all its mapleness shines as a beacon of hope to the rest of this country. Currently, folks are flocking here from all over the nation to experience what it is that we have. They come here seeking a better life. They come here looking for community, safety, the arts, good schools, local food, decency, and outdoor adventures. And this is a great boon for our state and our workforce. However, this better life they are seeking is ironically increasingly threatened. Increased population numbers lead to increased stresses on our housing options and costs, our roads, trails, waterways, and natural resources. This is why I return with trepidation. As senators, the task before you, the task of steering this ship, of welcoming new families without forcing out the old, and of lessening these stressors on our institutions and our environment can seem daunting indeed. As we gather here today to start a new biennium, we have many complicated issues before us. Vermont has generational poverty. Vermont has children who cannot learn well because they're hungry in their classrooms. Vermont has parents who go hungry so that their children can eat. Vermont has a housing shortage that has reached a crisis for our residents and our employers and has driven costs out of reach for too many. Vermont's wages are not rising fast enough to keep up with inflation. Vermonters face public safety concerns in both rural and urban communities. Vermonters face a workforce shortage and a childcare crisis. Vermont's healthcare system is broken. Hospitals and staff are collapsing. Costs keep going up while emergency rooms are burdened by caring for many with a range of issues beyond acute triage. Vermont has increased drug use, addiction, and a record number of overdose deaths. As if all that isn't enough to contend with, the climate crisis is here now, and it is only going to get worse. Our strong agricultural and forestry sectors are at risk, further threatening our vibrant local food supplies. Right now, because of the warm spell we're experiencing, the sap has already run. It's too early, and it adds work and labor costs to our maple production. What's worse, with earlier spring warmings, our maple trees risk budding out too early and turning our precious sweet sap bitter. In 50 short years, if we are not careful, the maple tree that produced that maple cream in your desks may not even be able to survive in our state any longer. So with all these challenges before us, why are we here? Why do we even bother? To answer that, I want to take a moment to acknowledge Sha'an Mullair, the Vermonter who drove here today from St. Johnsbury to swear me in. I'm humbled that Sha'an agreed to be a part of this ceremony because in my eyes, Sha'an is herself real Vermont maple cream. Sha'an is resilient, hardworking, resourceful, creative, and community-minded. Since moving to Derby Line in 1983, she has weathered many storms and yet remained a constant and vital ingredient in our Vermont community. As the coordinator and photographer of the I Am Vermont 2 photo story, some of you may have seen it in the State House cafeteria a few years ago, she helps shine a light on the issue of microaggressions against people of color who live in and are contributors to our neighborhoods and our communities. As a community organizer, inclusion consultant, artist, and educator, she has used her artist's eye and her big heart to creatively tap into what is important or unique about whatever her chosen subject is and boil it down to present it to the rest of us in a way we can understand and appreciate in a new light. It is folks like Sha'an who, instead of giving up, create a way of moving up and through diverse adversity that make Vermont the special place we know and love. As daunting as our task may seem at times, it's time to roll up our sleeves and, like Sha'an and all the other Sha'ans in our state, get to work being real Vermont creative. Each and every one of you has been elected to serve, and each and every one of you possesses some special experience or expertise or lived experience to bring to the table. While here, to serve as senators, you are also individuals. You are educators and social workers, public safety officials, business owners, scientists, healthcare workers, town managers by trade. But you may also have personal experiences with applying for permits, dealing with damage from an environmental disaster, parenting a special needs child, seeking help with aging parents, or losing a loved one to drug addiction or suicide. All of these things make you unique and knowledgeable. However, do not just rely on your own experiences. Recent technological improvements to the State House have given you the opportunity to hear and listen to the voices from Vermonters who otherwise would not be able to show up in person for testimony. Continue to take this opportunity. Our democracy can only be stronger when we include as many voices as possible. The challenge before you is to not become stymied by what may look bleak, but instead tap into your wealth of hidden resources, your areas of expertise and your reserves, and boil your shared ideas down into solutions that will work for Vermonters. The people of Vermont have elected each and every one of you to represent and serve them. It's time to do them proud. It's time to get Vermont creative, to roll up your sleeves and do the hard work, and be brave enough to let old, tired approaches fall by the wayside, and be daring enough to imagine and fund innovative new ideas to take their place. For my part, I'll work to make sure the process of this chamber is fair and that all voices are heard and respected in this chamber. We will follow the rules, and my judgments will be guided by the principles set forth in the Senate rules and Masons. I look forward to working with you all, and please know that my office is always open. Whether you want to discuss policy or need a quiet place to gather your thoughts, please feel free to contact Lisa Gerlach, my Chief of Staff, my incoming Chief of Staff, and utilize my space if you need it. Thank you, and let's get to work to tackle Vermonters' struggles. Okay, now the chair wishes to announce the appointment of Lisa Gerlach of Burlington as my Chief of Staff. And I also have an announcement on behalf of the Committee on Committees. The following committee is appointed: the Committee on Senate Rules. Senator from Chittenden Central District, Senator Baruth; Senator from Windsor District, Senator Clarkson; the Senator from Washington District, Senator Perchlik; the Senator from Grand Isle District, Senator Mazza; and the Senator from Franklin District, Senator Brock. I would like to recognize the Senator from Chittenden Central District.
Thank you, Mr. President. Subject to announcements, I would move that the Senate recess until 1:55 p.m. this afternoon. And if I could offer the first announcement, there will be a meeting of the Rules Committee immediately following this session. We'll be meeting right in the first row over there with the cameras still running. So if the senators just named could meet me there once the gavel falls, and if other senators could expeditiously move out of the chamber, that would help. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Are there any other announcements? Senator from Windsor.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Climate Solutions Caucus will be meeting today at 12 p.m. for lunch in the Pavilion Room 267, and I invite all members, all senators to join to discuss the overarching existential crisis of our time.
I hear an echo of another senator from Windsor. Are there any further announcements? Seeing none, the Senator from Chittenden Central District has moved that the Senate do recess until 1:55 p.m. this afternoon. Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed indicate by saying nay. The ayes have it, and the Senate will stand in recess until 1:55 this afternoon.
Okay, great. So I'll convene the meeting of the Rules Committee. This is our first meeting formally, so welcome, everybody. What we have in front of us today are 3 items. I'll start by asking the Senate Secretary to explain the most overarching procedural item, which is related to remote committee work.
You may remember yesterday you passed a resolution that allowed the Rules Committee to authorize committee meetings pursuant to Senate Rule 32A. You did that before. The 32A is a rule that says if there's a state of emergency, the Rules Committee can decide whether committees can be remote. They're supposed to incorporate the requirements of 9A, which is the Senate sessions. And 2 years ago, you permitted committees sort of to be decided whether or not members, if they had COVID, they could participate remotely. The chair had some discretion as to witnesses. And so it's my understanding that what you need to do today, this morning, is to say that you'd like to continue what we did for the last 2 years under that terms of that resolution we passed yesterday. But as a reminder, it's only until March 3rd. That gives you more time to flesh out what you want to do, if you want to do a more permanent rule, if you want to do some kind of changes, but it at least allows you to continue doing what you did for the last biennium.
And John, just for clarity's sake, it's not limited to COVID exposure.
It's a chair.
At the discretion of the chair.
Yes.
And it includes voting, that they can be remote and be able to vote.
They could remote participate. There is the what you've done in the past is you had to be on video and audio to
Yes.
on the chamber,
Right.
and it would be the exact same process as the last 2 years.
Right.
Okay, Senator Percival.
During a summer committee, they said that the rule was that a quorum had to be present. So you could vote if you were remote, but only if a quorum was present. Does that rule pertain to?
There's I'm not necessarily sure which committee there was. There were 3 different things going on this. The rule that you used for the last 2 years was okay for Senate committee meetings.
Okay.
The House had a different process. They had to all be in person. Then there were joint committees, and there were 2 different types. Those that were contained just legislators. Probably, if that was being used for one of those, I'm not sure they checked with the clerk or with me, because I don't think they could do that. Because the idea was you had to have the quorum. If you were remote, you couldn't vote. But that was because the House did not extend the remote rule. And I'm not sure they're going to do any kind of remote rules at this point.
And we have, from the leadership side, we have agreed with the House that in joint meetings, their rules will pertain. But we're talking about the Senate rule here.
Correct.
Assuming folks are clear on that and there's no further questions, I would entertain a motion to continue what we've been doing.
I'd second.
Okay. Senator Mazza motions, Senator Clarkson seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so that passes, and we will continue on the committee side as we have been, basically at the behest of the committee chair. So the second issue has to do with water exemptions. So as you know, there's a rule that we don't have food or drink in the chamber, including water. There has historically been one exemption for Senator Sears based on health reasons. We have had at this point 3 senators incoming who have put in for medical exemptions, and they've formally emailed me asking for that, as well as a revisiting of the rule in general. So what I have said to those senators is that today we'll consider their medical exemptions, and we will, at our next regularly scheduled meeting, talk about the rule as a whole. So without getting into the medical details, I will say that as chair, I'm satisfied that these are medical requests based on pre-existing conditions coming into the chamber. So I'm happy to discuss or answer questions, but it seems to me that these are in line with the exemption that Senator Sears already has. So I intend to look on it favorably for that reason.
I would agree. As the person who represents the wonderful group, Meeting House Restoration, that takes care of our desks and keeps them beautiful. I would actually ask that all water, whether both for these medical exemptions and as we consider it in the future, be in contained containers, closed containers, so that it can't spill.
I see. So the existing rule is, and
I actually have comments. I'm not sure so generally speaking, the existing rule goes back to 1999 or 2000. It permitted 1 cup, and that cup is usually by Senator Sears. It's supposed to be a regular size one. The reason the cup was done is so that we don't have any of the issues that could come up with props, paraphernalia. And so in that sense, that's why that one was done. His was not time limited. There are 2 or 3 different issues if you decide to go forward. One of them would be, I'd recommend that you do it for this biennium, because that gives you time, you can extend it if need be, rather than have it be a 30 or 40 year thing. The second one is, I would generally recommend that you do it, I'm going to recommend that
you mean we're actually in sync?
Well, the last part's a little more difficult. So I would be recommending that we provide the containers, and I was going to say we're going to provide, recyclable cups, because that works with Senator Sears. Our hesitation on the containers, we can look into what we can get that are unique for these 3, that would just be for those 3. My concern is I don't want cups that are big stack ones into political positions. And if we're directed to try to find a compromise with, I don't vote, but try to provide a compromise.
To work on a productive solution.
Correct. I would say that our office will obtain some cups that will be like 12-ounce cups with tops that will be clear. We'll go out and purchase them, and then they'll be assigned to the different 3 senators as a way of trying to make sure it works for everybody.
Senator Mosley.
What involves being medically request? I mean, you just say, if I was to come in and say, medically request, I'd get one, or how do you have to do that?
Well, so
because I can see this going widespread.
Yep.
And that's my concern.
And that's the thing we're going to consider is.
Well, no, okay.
We have one of the 3 requests that's come into my office offered medical documentation, but none of the 3 have provided medical documentation, but their reasoning is based on conditions that are, not in question, basically. So we have one senator who is currently breastfeeding and is concerned about hydration and the lactation process. We have another senator who has a condition where dehydration can lead to dizziness. And we have another senator who is pregnant and is concerned about hydration for those reasons. So I take the senator's caution. I think it's good that these come through the Rules Committee. Myself, I'm not inclined to ask for doctors' notes. I think senators can be trusted on that front. But like I say, at our next meeting, we will have a discussion of the full rule, because it's clear that the incoming class has a different take, and we need to, bring that in sync somehow with the way we've been doing things. So it may take an adjustment on both our parts, but so that's where the medical side lands right now, Dick.
Okay.
Other questions or clarification?
I would move that we accept and that move forward with those requests, and that we allow them, and that we continue to look at containers that would be agreeable for all of us to consider at our next meeting, that are contained, because these are historic desks, and we just don't want, with spillage.
You also got the speakers now too.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's true. We do.
We would have this, I may not be able to get them by tomorrow, but we will have cups available by Tuesday for these 3 senators.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not a big.
So Senator Clarkson has so moved. Any second?
Second.
Senator Brock seconds. Any further discussion? Those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so I will inform those senators of that, indicating to them that it's a biennium long exemption. We'll revisit their exemptions, and we'll revisit the regular rule next meeting. Third order of business has to do with a decision that the Committee on Committees has made regarding expanding one committee from a 5-member committee to a 6, and that is in conflict with the rule, which requires that committee be a 5-member committee. So we're talking about the Government Operations Committee, and it says, specifically a 5-member committee in the rule. We have been moving, as with Ed, to language that says 5 or 6 to be decided at the discretion of the Committee on Committees. So that's the rule change that I would be seeking on behalf of the Committee on Committees to allow those, what the Committee on Committees has decided and the permanent rules to be in harmony. And John, could you just read the...
I didn't get a chance to draft it yet this morning. We'll have it ready for this afternoon so that it can be done in preparation for the rules, for the announcements if they're ready.
Yeah.
And the vote.
So we will do this potentially right as soon as you come back from the joint assembly. You would do the resolution.
Yeah.
And
And then
be ready if you're
Committee on Committees
ready.
would follow that.
The Committee on Committees is ready. So there are certain committees that historically have had small changes, and some of them were changed probably about 15 or 20 years ago. But as an example, the Committee on Education says a Committee on Education, comma, of 5 or 6 members, comma, as determined by the Committee on Committees, comma. The current language for the Government Operations is a Committee on Government Operations of 5 members. So we would change this to be a Committee on Government Operations, comma, of 5 or 6 members, comma, as determined by the Committee on Committees for each biennium, comma. We'll make it so it's the same as the education. That would then give the Committee on Committees the discretion to make it a 5 or 6 member committee.
Senator Clarkson.
I'm happy to move this and happy to vote for it. I'm just concerned about the biennium because my understanding is the Committee on Committees, if it doesn't work or if there's any problem, it doesn't need to necessarily be for the whole biennium. I mean, the Committee on Committees could make.
Well, under this language, we could go back to 5.
Right, exactly. But his use of the term biennium, does that hold us for the whole biennium, or could the Committee on Committees make a decision during, if it just is clear it's not, I'm sure it's going to work. But in case it doesn't and there is a problem, could Committee on Committees come back in 2 months and say, we're going to make a change?
I think under the discretion clause.
Okay.
I probably could start 2 answers. One of them, I think you can.
Okay,
Because you can
great.
kind of change the rules. You can make change in your policy just like the water. The second one is this language goes back to the 1940s and 50s of last century.
Right.
And so I don't think it's really become an issue. And I do know they've changed them at different times. I don't know if they've changed them in the middle of a year. You may have, if something happens to a senator or someone resigns, you may want to reassign all the committees. And none of the committee assignments are made permanently for biennium. If there was a vacancy and they were filled in, you may shift, the Committee on Committees may shift people around. So I think you'll be fine if there's a decision that you want to move.
I just want to make sure we can be flexible.
Yeah.
Great. Then I would move that we accept the Committee on Committees recommendation and change the language that enables the Senate Government Operations Committee to have 5 or 6 members.
So let's make sure. So that would be, the Rules Committee will sponsor that resolution.
Yeah. So Senator Clarkson has moved that language. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Senator Perchlik. Any discussion?
Just a question. What's the rationale for making the change? Why is the change being made?
Well, I think it's the same as when education went from 5 to 6. And that is based on the particular, number of requests and intensity of requests for one committee over another. We wound up 4 or 6 years ago with the need to expand education. This time around, government operations turned out to be a very sought after committee, and people's skill sets were of competing strengths. So the Committee on Committees took that avenue as the easiest way to make the most people happy.
So I'll just give you one more piece of historical. The last time these were sort of changed was probably the early 2000s. There were 2 major kind of changes made. A lot of the committees used to say 5 or 6. Back then, the Agricultural Committee was a 3rd committee. And so when they made the Agricultural Committee a full committee, they took away some of these 5 or 6s because the numbers didn't quite work. They seemed foreign to those who were here. At least one senator back who was here. But the Ag Committee was, you met in the morning at 8 o'clock for an hour. And then
Oh,
You
so
run-
some people had 3 committees.
Exactly.
Oh,
And
that's
so
what you
this-
meant, okay.
So some of these were changes. The other time there were changes was back when the economic development used to be general and military affairs. And then it was changed to
Right,
economic
we
development and
talked
general
about this
affairs.
yesterday.
And so that's when the last real tinkering on some of these numbers were made. If you look at it, there's also a little thing that we may propose to you at some other point. There's kind of this weird tag that says, one of them says there will be a committee of 5 as determined by it wasn't perfectly worded when it was done, but it's not unusual for that particular change to be made to make something.
The House just did away with the committee, right?
I think they made a new jurisdiction.
They got rid of one.
They got rid of one.
They renamed some committees and they
Did away with one.
combined some.
From your perspective, the committees stay fairly established. The House frequently, Senator Clarkson, can change almost every year depending on what the speaker wants to do and realign. Over here, the committees are fairly stable. They're not changed, probably 3 different major changes. They weren't really that major in the last 25 years.
Further discussion?
I move it.
Okay, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, that is also unanimous. So that's the only thing I have for today. John, I'm going to inform these 3 senators. Is it the committee's pleasure that Senator Sears uses the little plastic cups? Can I, until Tuesday, have them use those? Or would you prefer that I say we want them to wait until John comes up with the...
I'd rather have them wait so we all uniform.
Okay,
we don't-
and that'll be Tuesday, John?
They will be here.
Okay.
Yeah, and we're happy to help you.
That'd be good.
I love being in sync with you, Bloomer. It's sort of like one of my great pleasures.
You could have writing on the cup to shop at Mazda's or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
Something non-partisan.
I know that's John's nightmare.
Oh, yes, John.
This is Bloomer's
I
nightmare.
don't blame him. I agree with him.
We live
Okay.
to give you,
All right, so we are adjourned then.
thank you.
Thank you, folks.